season. New show, new folks, new reasons. New level, so you know we going up. South with the old, so you know we cleaning. We gleaning, brand new story. Got a podcast, come talk with Tori. Got you fiending, new stories. New podcast, come and talk with Tori.
Hey y'all, what's up? So you want to start a podcast, right? Well, do like I did. Go to anchor.fm and start recording your very own podcast today. Not tomorrow. Don't delay. Start it today, y'all. And once you get on anchor.fm, you can chop it up, you can edit. There's some editing tools that you can use on there. You can even make some little snippets to promote your podcast. Go to anchor.fm and start your very own podcast. Hey y'all, season 3. Check it out, y'all. You don't want to miss it. I have some exciting things for you. Hey y'all, before we get into this week's episode, this is part 2 with Kimberly Williams. If you have not heard part 1, go check it out first and then come back to part 2. Human trafficking. You don't want to miss everything that Kimberly and I talked about in episode 1. Go check it out. Hey y'all, we're back. I have Miss Kimberly Williams with me. Last week we discussed human trafficking, and if you have not listened to that episode yet, before you listen to this one, go back and listen to that one. Please do yourselves a favor and go listen to that one first, and then come right on back and listen to this one. Miss Kimberly Williams will be discussing more in depth about human trafficking in her nonprofit Faith Collaborative, and I see she has the gold cup.
Great minds think alike.
Yes. But before we talk about the human trafficking, how long did it take you to find this gold cup?
Oh my gosh. So I had a big bold birthday. I called it my golden birthday. I ain't gonna tell everybody my age online. But I wanted this gold cup because I felt like it would be a great. So I drove around the stores, and my daughter, she was like, "Mom, I don't know why you're so obsessed with this gold cup." And she saw it in a store, but she didn't get it for me. Can you imagine what kind of daughter is that?
What kind of daughter is that?
What kind of daughter is that? And so when she told me what store they had, she saw it in, I went to that store and they had 2 left. There was 2 ladies standing in front of me, and I wanted to push them out the way and get my cup, but I didn't. And I stayed behind them patiently, and they were like, "Oh, excuse us." And I was like, "Okay." I said, "Are you going to get the cup?" They were like, "Oh, no, we were just looking at it." I was like, "Praise the Lord." So I grabbed the cup, and I checked out, and I've been happy ever since.
Well, like I said, this cup, like Starbucks, really, they take all of my money. That's the first point. But this cup, I couldn't believe that I purchased this cup because it costs too much money for a cup. But it's so pretty, so I had to get it. And I knew not a lot of people would have it, so I wanted to be a little different as well. So we're twinsies.
We are. Great minds think alike. That's how it works, right?
Yep.
So thank you for having me back. I can't wait to share. It was so excited to talk about from last week to talk about human trafficking and just the statistics, how often it happens, how it happens around the world, in Texas, in the United States, and then in Louisiana. And we have also talked about the top three states being California, Texas, and Florida being the top 3, but Texas is right next door to Louisiana, and we know it happens there a lot. We also know that your state already has a forum and a resource center for more information. So I really hope people go and listen to the last podcast so that they can hear and learn more about human trafficking. So today, I really look forward to talking more about how I got involved in the anti-human trafficking space personally. Um, because once you learn about it, you cannot go back to not knowing about it, right? It's there. You're never going to go, what is human trafficking? I ain't heard nothing about it, right? You're going to know it's where people are being exploited and taken advantage of, and you're going to want to do something about it. So one of the things people ask me when they learn about human trafficking, if they're not in healthcare, where I teach quite often every day about this issue, but if they're in just everyday people like me, I really tell them you can start where you are. And I actually started where I was. At the time, I was a stay-at-home mom with 2 going on 3 kids. I was, that was my day-to-day job, was to make sure that they were taken care of and getting them wherever they had to go, school activities and such. But one day I was, involved in my church, and my church at the time took us to a conference. And at this conference, there were many speakers about many different, topics, but they had a survivor of human trafficking talk about her story. And the story melted my heart. I just could not imagine living in a world where people were being exploited, and I wanted to do something about it. And so on the bus ride home from our church trip, our pastor asked everyone on the trip, like, what are you going to do as it relates to what you learned, right? Because there was people learning about digging wells in Africa. There was people learning about, helping other children that were blind. There was just so many different topics. But the one that resonated with me was human trafficking, and hearing the voice of that woman talk about her experience. And as a result, I told him I'm going to raise money to help traffic victims. And I was like, to this day, I'm like, who was talking? I was a stay-at-home mom. Like, I didn't have any resources. So even my husband was kind of looking at me strange. But, it just became or has become a life passion, and I believe a call to work in this space to help others. I started where I was, at my church and the church group, and really planning an event around raising awareness and raising funds and money for traffic victims. There was a local home that wasn't too far from where we were. At the time, I was living in Charlotte, North Carolina, and there was a home not too far away. So I went to visit the home and really was blown away that many of the victims that were in that home looked just like Tori and I. They were younger, much younger, and they were from the ages of probably 18 to probably 8 was the youngest. And they were living in a shelter where they had nowhere else to go, as they were trying to recover from the abuse that they had suffered at the hands of their traffickers. So at the time, we really made sure that I would plan outings, like for girl trips, for them to come to the city so that they could learn more about human trafficking. They could learn about, planned events for them to come to the city so they could know that they were loved and there were people that cared for them. And then it helped me to teach other people about human trafficking in the way that I could talk about it from my circle of influence, other stay-at-home moms, some of the groups as I was a part, my Bible study group, or my mom's group, or at the time I was in a couple of women-led organizations. And so those nonprofit organizations, I would just talk about, hey, did y'all know about human trafficking? Let's have a program on human trafficking so that our group and we would know about it. And that just really started to consume my life. And then, hey, let's raise money so that we can bring those young ladies to Houston, to Charlotte, to have like a fun day, like give them, spa gift certificates, or play tickets, or just different things so that they know that they were loved and cared for. And while doing that, I enjoyed doing that and had a great time supporting victims. One day, the shelter that I visited, they had nowhere for the victims to go while while the staff went home for the holidays. And so, of course, I start talking and I say, I'll take them. They can come to my house. Hadn't told my husband, hadn't talked to my kids about it, just volunteering our household for things. But I will say that was one of the most inspiring mission opportunities that I had to do, that I felt compelled to do in my own home. I did not know the risk. I wouldn't recommend it for anybody unless you've done some safety stuff, but that just worked out for me because at the time I had children like that were 10, 11, and the girls was my oldest 12, maybe 12. So the young girls who came to stay with my house during the break were about the same age. So they just kind of fell in line, right? And so at the time we had a house with a couple of extra rooms. So we, allowed them to have their own rooms. And so they got the chance to spend Christmas and Thanksgiving with us. And I remember one young girl mentioning that she had never experienced Christmas. Now, I realize Christmas in our culture is very over commercialized, right? All the food, all the presents, everything that you want. But, to me, one of the beautiful things about Christmas is the hope and the excitement of all the possibilities, right? And to know that there was a child out there which means there's probably many children right out there who haven't had that experience of knowing what a future could hold, right? And what that hope looks like. It just broke my heart. And so from then on, I continued to volunteer with that home, as well as in my community to, like I said, raise awareness and have influence with different people. I also got a chance to, at the time, my husband's job relocated him to Houston, and I came kicking and screaming because I felt like I had created this life of helping those survivors in Charlotte. But once I got to Houston, God opened up doors for me to create my own nonprofit called the Faith Collaborative. One of the things, I would just go and beg my friends and family for money. They'd come by the house and just stick money in the mailbox and, for me to get later. And my husband's like, this is not how you do any of this. And I was like, well, they're just dropping it by. I had to pick up the kids from whatever and take them there. And he was like, you need to start your own nonprofit if you're raising money this way. And so I started an organization called the Faith Collaborative. It was birthed out of wanting to help where I was. And as I said, I was a stay-at-home mom, so I wasn't a corporate executive. I wasn't doing anything miraculous. I was just raising my kids. And, well, that might be miraculous, right, Tori?
Yes, that is miraculous. Hey, y'all. Y'all know one of my favorite places on earth is Starbucks. Yes, I record some of my podcast episodes here. I come out just to hang at Starbucks. I love Starbucks. Right now, summertime, so there's some new drinks that you can try. Like the one that I have here is the pineapple refresher. So yeah, just go check out Starbucks. Get signed up for the rewards program. You can get lots of free stuff once you add up so many stars on your account. So yeah, check out Starbucks and tell them I sent you. So I
To raise your
heard.
kids, yeah.
I heard.
So when you talk about it from that standpoint of just doing my everyday, that was my everyday mission field. To start the Faith Collaborative became the mission field for me. And so when I moved here, I got, ingrained and, finally I got a job at the St. Luke's Health at the hospital. And I still work there, but, my passion around human trafficking really fits into all aspects of my life. And so with that being said, we created Faith Collaborative and really as a ministry to be able to go out and serve traffic victims in the community. So founded in 2015 and to offer pastoral care for victims of human trafficking and their families. So many times when victims find themselves in this lifestyle, the last thing they want someone to do is to really talk to them about what they shoulda, coulda, woulda. Yeah. How many of us have been in our worst moments in our life and somebody telling us what we shoulda, coulda, woulda, or how bad we are, whatever. And sometimes it can come across just in the way that we provide care or where we're taking care of somebody. And what we want to make sure of is that they feel like they're loved and they're heard. And I think one of the things when you're working with victims or working with anybody who has, been traumatized by life's events, they want to be heard. And pastoral care offers that. And so we really want to be present with the victims over a simple meal and embrace this space of companionship without judgment or condemnation. People look at individuals who've been trafficked victims with a lot of judgment and condemnation. How did you end up in that lifestyle? How did you, that just tends to be what happens. It's not right. But we want to sit down beside them and share, let them share their story, how they want to share it. And that's if they even want to share about trafficking. Can you imagine the most traumatic event in your life, and you're having to tell somebody, and they asking you a million and one questions about it? Well, how did your divorce happen? When did it happen? Well, you must not have worked hard enough. How should you do that? Nobody wants to go through that, How did you lose your baby? You should have exercised more. You should have ate better vegetables, or giving them all this information. That's not the time or place, right?
That's how I feel about Hurricane Katrina.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. Well, how did y'all should have left. Why y'all didn't stay? Why did y'all stay and wait so long? And none of that is relevant when you're in the heat of a traumatic situation. You're just trying to get out of it. You're trying to survive, and you don't want people bringing up, past history. And so our goal is to really, a simple meal, a simple embrace of the space that individual is in, and just to listen, just being quiet and listen. And that's one of the things that we try to do. And really listening empathetically, it just really shows that you understand how somebody else feels, and you could imagine what it might be like to be that person in that space. One of the things that from the last episode when we talked, the human trafficking episode, when we talked about, can we, I don't even think I can imagine what it must feel to be a 10-year-old girl having to do what some 10-year-olds are having, victims have to do. Or a grown man who came to, is trying to work and make a living for his family, and is being exploited because he's not getting paid, even though the employer said they were going to do this, right? And I can't even imagine what that must feel like, but I can imagine the shame, the sadness, the anger, the, just hopelessness that an individual might feel being in one of those situations. And even though, my situation is different, I remember how my shame felt when I was shamed about something. And the last thing I wanted someone to do is put it in my face. And so how can you listen to help people? And that's really what we try to do at Faith Collaborative. We've been in existence, as I said, since 2015, and we've been serving these simple meals. I call them simple, but the women and men who eat the meals that we either cook, my husband and I, some portions, some of the side dishes, or cater in, like a Rudy's barbecue or a Luby's or something like that we may do. We've fed over 500 meals, one simple meal at a time, and we've probably talked to more than 500 victims of trafficking about their situation, and listening to them and offering support. We've done over 50 trainings to nonprofits and civic organizations throughout the years, where we go out and talk about it just to raise awareness at different churches, at different civic groups, at different nonprofit organizations. We try to make sure just to raise awareness so more and more people know about it, more and more people can talk to their kids about it, and hopefully more and more people it will prevent more and more people from not getting into life. Sometimes when it's necessary, when people get out of the life and they're trying to make ends meet, it's always the temptation to go back into that lifestyle, right? Because I can make, $100, really quickly, right? And so we want to kind of help with that obstacle in some way. And so sometimes we'll pay rent, and we've done that for about 5 different families so that they can make it through the holidays or not have to resort back to the lifestyle that got them maybe in this situation in the first place. And then we've got 4 partnerships with community partners out there that are nonprofit organizations, like for our city called United Against Human Trafficking, where we work with them at the Landing, which is a drop-in center for trafficked victims. We work and go out there, and we try to do Easter egg hunts and different activities with them so that they know they're loved. And sometimes they have children that are in this lifestyle with them. They may be trying to protect the children, or the children may be children of the trafficker, because some traffickers will try to impregnate their victims so that they'll be always attached to the individual. And I can't imagine having to live that kind of lifestyle. And so these are the type of things that we try to do with Faith Collaborative to make it easier or shine a little light and support for victims who may be still in the life but trying to work their way out of the life. And hopefully we're planting seeds of hope and peace and faith that they can get out of their bad situation and move on to a recovery outside of that lifestyle. So that is what we focus on with Faith Collaborative. And one of the things that we try to do is really encourage people to find your own gift of where you know you want to work in a space to help. Like if you already know that you are great with finances, maybe finding an organization in your community that works with survivors of human trafficking, and then maybe you can go and teach a budgeting class or how to keep good records class, because they're just like you and I, learning, right? But they have a deficit because of their trauma, right? And that's a deficit because they've been traumatized, not the deficit, but they're not human. They need just what you and I need. And if you know how to sew or know how to knit, I'm sure there's an organization in your community that offers something for trafficked victims, and sometimes they will allow you to come in and do that. Ours was a simple meal, right? It's not anything that you don't probably do every Sunday or weekday with your family. But I just try to take that through our partners to victims who need help. So I'm not a genius, right? And so and if you guys probably can do this and take it further than I can. So I can't wait to hear all about what you're gonna do. If you can reach me, I forgot to put this on the slide for this episode. You can reach me at kwilliams@faithcollaborative.org, and that's KWILLIAMS at Faith, FAITH, Collaborative, COLLABORATIVE.org. So I thank you, Tori, for having me on to talk about my passion of serving. But I appreciate you using your platform to raise awareness about a cause that needs more light shine in the dark places.
Yes, thank you so much. And I have to shout out my classmate, Danielle, for introducing us. I posted a status, I believe on Facebook. It may have been Instagram, but I think it was on Facebook, asking for topics to discuss on my podcast. And topics, whether I knew about them or not. And so she messaged me. She said, I have an idea. And so I said, well, I'm here for it. What's your idea? And so she began to give me different contacts, and I reached out to you first. And so I'm just glad that we were able to connect and do this 2-part series for the podcast. And I can tell you, it's not my passion, but now that I know more about it, of course I'm going to now be more in tune with it and keep up with it, and even find somewhere to, give my talents, my time, whatever, for these individuals who are in this place or who are coming out of this place. And of course, praying for them as well, for those who may not be able to get out right now, you know. So thank you again.
Thank
Really
you.
am.
And you know what? I love that you said pray for her. And that should be like our number one. That's the starting point, really. All of us can pray. Lord, help them. You know,
Yeah.
I don't even know their name, Lord, or know who they are, but Lord, you know, right? And He can help them. So that's where we start with prayer.
Yeah.
And then you look for other opportunities where He might have you to serve and
Yep.
do what you can. Because everybody can do something. You can call, you can volunteer, you can pray, you can do something.
Yeah. So thank you again. And of course, we'll be in touch for the next series.
Yes.
Okay, y'all. See y'all later. Bye.
Bye. Next time.